Welcome back, everybody, to Flip the Script. I'm very excited about today because this is my first colleague from Ultimate Hell Week I've got in today. And he's a man that I think is probably one of the more interesting people on the show because... Like even just, I put up a question box on Instagram yesterday, and the questions, not only the level of detail in the questions, but also the amount of questions that came in told me that you were a person that people were very, very interested in hearing more about. And I said, you know what, we have to get Jay on. And I just really think that there was a lot of stuff left unsaid about it. And and kind of, you know, areas where we could touch on a bit more and give people a bit more detail. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries at all, Brother Bear. Well, we were just talking off air just about our kind of like our knowledge of the show, and two, like the reasons why we actually came forward. So you didn't actually watch the show at all.
No, I didn't watch any of the episodes, and I kind of done that. Well, will we circle back to like why did you do it in the first place?
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
maybe kind of transition into that.
100%.
So I think in, you know, my transition or my, I suppose, backstory getting onto the show probably started about 6 years ago. So 6 years ago, I think it was about 2016, I went over to the UK and I was doing a business course. And on this business course, there was kind of some physical elements to it. And it was that whole thing of, you know, break the body down a little bit, you know, expose your weaknesses and then go back and, I suppose, build them back into your business. And on that, there was a guy called Mo who won the second series of the SAS Who Dares Wins. And after seeing that, I was like, oh my God, this guy's so inspirational. And I applied for the English show. So this would have been their third series and I never heard anything. And in the process of doing that, I learned a little bit more about the guy in the UK who was running this, I suppose, men's business development type course. And he had gone over to America to do this course called Wake Up Warrior. And then I kind of learned a little bit more about Wake Up Warrior, and I realised that all these guys had done a training with the Navy SEALs in America. So it was this thing called SEAL for Kokoro. So the Wake Up Warrior was about 10 grand or something, 20 grand to do. I was like, all right, that was a little bit outside my budget at that time. So it kind of got me interested in this. And then about a year later, I was at a seminar in the UK and there was a guy talking about how he went and done this SEAL for Kokoro, which is a 50-hour kind of endurance event with the Navy SEALs, or 48-hour. So it's like, it got me intrigued. I was like, I wonder, could I do that? So I went on, signed up for it, started training for it, slipped, broke my wrist, had to push it out. So we're kind of talking about 12 months I got ready for this. And anyway, flew over to California to do this with the Navy SEALs and made it through. So I made it to the end and it's like, all right, you've passed, you know. And I was the only guy in my group who made it through. Everybody else had passed out. So roll on back in Ireland, you know, talking to a few people about it, you know, you put a post out on social media. And the Irish show would come live. And this is probably 3 to 4 years later. You know, the Irish show would come live. Loads of people were tagging me, and you got to do this, you got to do this. So I applied for it and got on the phone, told them about the thing in America, and kind of never heard anything back after that. So we roll on another 2 or 3 years, and you know, various friends were getting involved in the show. I knew some people on the show, and rolling back to 2020 March, we go into lockdown. Gym closes, business closed. I'm gone from, like, you know, building this business up for 10 years to sitting at home twiddling my thumbs and like, what the fuck's going on here? At the same time, my grandmother passed away and she was in hospital. I couldn't go in to see her and I didn't have a great relationship with her, you know, over the last maybe 10 or 15 years, and there was this bit of guilt associated with not doing that. We roll on another 6 months and my mother came to me and says, hey, listen, your second granny, you know, who was still alive at the time, she's unwell. And we kind of done things different there, had a great relationship with her. We brought her into the house. She stayed in the family home and all the family were able to be around. And when she passed away, the day she passed away, I was on my phone, the show popped up again and I went and applied for it. And that was the kind of start of getting back into it, you know?
Okay. So it really, there was like multiple years and like multiple
It's like literally 6 years and, you know, back and forward and up and down and back and forward to kind of get to the point of, all right, you're on the show.
Okay, amazing. And it's weird because like you'd think like did you follow the English version? Did you watch
Do you know,
the show?
the early ones are probably seeing little bits of it, but to be honest, I probably don't really watch too much TV. It's, you know, you're on Netflix, you're on this and you're on that. And another thing, I know this might sound silly, but I'm up usually early, 5:30 in the morning, opening up the gym and things like that. So I'd kind of be in bed around, early-ish. So it kind of just slipped by me, the show. You know, it's not that I'm not interested in it or that type of thing. It kind of just slipped by the wayside, you know?
Okay. Because like my history with it goes back to when I was like 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even
So,
before that.
do you know,
Yeah.
so it goes, so I know 100% where these things, they lay eggs.
Yeah.
And it takes time then for them to
They
kind
get
of
legs and they grow a little bit, you know?
Absolutely. And like, what did you think about the whole process? Because like, look, with COVID, things were getting moved around. We were getting different dates for everything. Like we weren't even sure if we were going to be able to do the fitness test. Remember? And they didn't know whether they were going to be able to do them on this date. And then it was like the day before they confirmed and all this kind of stuff. Like, because like you strike me because I follow you on Instagram and I follow your page. You do strike me as a like an organized person and a person that you know would like to know. Okay, so this is the time I have 3 months to get ready. All this kind of stuff. How did that make you feel about it?
Yeah, I think like if I was rolling back as well, so we're kind of talking to summer 2020. As I said, when I applied, I probably used training, right? So I think for me and anybody who's into fitness, training is a kind of a bedrock. It's something that you go back to. It's that kind of keystone behavior. And if I'm being honest, I probably, you know, you run your own business or you're in a small team of people, you know, you've got a partnership and you're in very control of your own destiny. It's like, listen, we're not making money this week or this month. Let's do something about it. Or we've got to, you know, sell this course or we've got to get more people into the gym. So you're very driven and motivated and it's all directly with your own behavior. So when the gym had closed down and all the business closed down and everything you'd worked for just collapsed, I probably went and, you know, maybe didn't deal with those debts the way I could have or I should have. You know, my thing would probably be, right, it's happened, put it in the past, rock on. And I was always very driven and motivated into the future. So come the weekends as well, you know, I wouldn't really drink too much, you know, on a normal occasion. But I did definitely notice myself in lockdown. It's like you're going out on the weekend, or well, not going out on the weekend, you're at home. And Friday night, then it was Saturday night, then all of a sudden it was Thursday night. And I was probably looking back going, what the hell am I doing here? You know, I was kind of going off the rails is maybe too strong of a word, but it definitely wasn't productive or healthy, the kind of behaviour. And in retrospect, looking back, it probably was that lack of control, not really dealing with things as much as they could do. And that kind of was another reason to do the show. So now this brings us to, as you said, I would be very focused. So we had, I think, 10 or 12 weeks. I hired a coach. He was a commando in the British Army and was like, listen, I'm going to just do whatever he tells me to do. And one of the guys in the gym,
what's up with the Irish Army?
I didn't know any of the guys.
SAS Who Dares wins here, and then you're fucking hiring the commando here. Like, what's wrong with the Irish?
Well, he was
boys,
a Welsh guy. He was a Welsh guy, so it wasn't too bad. No, really, what happened there, I had a mate and he through a kind of kettlebell thing that we were doing, a kind of international kettlebell company, the SFG. I was like, they would be involved in a lot of special forces in America, a lot of special forces all around the world. I kind of contacted him and says, who do we know that is a trainer, is a coach, and would be, you know, have time and that I could turn around and reach out to them and kind of help. And this was the guy that came back, you know. But where we're kind of going with that is that, listen, it's this fixed amount of time and it's like, I'm going to set my mind on this, you know, fully like immersed, fully focused on this event, and we get stuck in. And then I think the week before I was meant to peak for the show was like, hey, the show's cancelled. It's like, it's that big like deflation. So then I was like, all right, I think, now don't get me, the dates could be a little wrong here. Then I was like, okay, it's going to go ahead in December. So probably took a week or two and maybe slid back into some of that shitty behaviour that I spoke about earlier. But then head was back down, all we go again. Then it's like cancelled in December. It's like, all right, it's going to be January, February. Cancelled in January, February. It's going to be March. It was cancelled in March. Then all of a sudden it's May. So I don't know, we probably had about 8 months of training for this event, which, you know, was stop, start. And I think that was very difficult. Another thing for me, right? So I think when I started training for the show, I was about 102 kilos. So a little bit bigger than even what I am now. And there was a bit of an identity crisis. So I went from 102 kilos down to 87. And literally, I'm no shitting you, I was up on the top of a mountain, Tonlagee, you know, in Wicklow. And this dude walked up and he goes, Jay! It turns out he was a supplier of gym equipment. He goes, are you okay? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, and everybody says, you're not lifting weights anymore. There was a bit of an identity crisis, you know, where I was like, oh, I don't want to be the small guy. And I know that might sound, and maybe this is a little egotistical, but anybody who lifts weights, any man who lifts weights and they want to get a bit bigger, it was kind of a bit of a conflict. So there was a few things all coming together where I was like, oh man, by the time the show came around, it's just like, I want this to be over and done with, you know?
Yeah. I was kind of this. I was similar because like I had my own things that I wanted to train for as well. I was like I train for ultra marathons, so it's different to that because like when you're training for ultra marathons, yes, you have like a lot of aerobic endurance, but your short burst fitness and your which you need a lot of in Hell Week. Yeah. Your short burst fitness and your ability to lift heavy, which we did a lot of as well, would have been reduced. So I was kind of fighting myself, and you know they finally gave us the word, and it was like 5 weeks or something, wasn't it? It was like 5 weeks, and like really that means you've about 3.5 weeks because you've about 10 days to a week to taper off. So I definitely felt that as well before going in was like, okay, am I putting my best foot forward here, you know? But I think, you know, where I've definitely kind of come out the other side of it is doubts are just part of it, aren't they? They really are part of the whole Hell Week experience. So when we got off the bus, right, and all this kind of stuff, and we just kind of started straight into it, like, I know myself, being honest, and like I'm very much a person of like, you know, my own mindset will get me through things. I did think, fuck in hell, like, this is crazy. This is 10 or 15 minutes in, and I was caught all up my fucking legs.
Yeah, because you're going through the gravel and all that. Yeah,
you know, and like soaking wet, freezing cold already, and I'm like, this is you know, fucking 15, 20 minutes in. Like, what did you feel like about kind of that whole first kind of? You know.
Yeah, I think it's that bit of a hazing at the beginning where they are trying to really disorientate people, you know, and I kind of expected that coming, you know, where you're going to hit this big hard thing. And in my mind, you were trying to go, listen, it's only going to be for a while. It's only going to be for a while. And again, you kind of think, all right, is this it over now? I'm finished this crawl. No, up, carry this person. Oh shit, right, we have to carry this person. Now went to here, do squats, do this. So I think it is that kind of shock to the system, and you're trying to just calm yourself. You mentioned earlier when we were talking off air, you're kind of talking about Wim Hof. And this, you know, even as you were doing burpees, you know, take your breath, try and relax in it. And I think, you know, the worst thing, and I don't think anybody did do this, but the worst thing you could do was go off like bat out of hell and then kind of fatigue yourself, because you're always trying to manage your fatigue but still put in an effort which you're not going to, I suppose, draw eyes on yourself, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely a constant battle, isn't it? It's like, do I, because like I was, you and I shared a very similar ideal about like, they're not looking for you just to pass, they want you to excel. And I remember you saying about the climb that we did, that was an element that you thought, well, geez, I didn't excel in that. Yeah. And like, I definitely felt like, although on paper it looked like I didn't. I was so tired.
Well, you know, I suppose your own ability in doing things like that, and maybe if you had went there on fresh legs, you know, whatever time or however you would have felt doing it or after, it probably would have been totally different.
Yeah, but just in the situation as well. Like, so like, right, getting into the elements of the episode, right? Because people did ask some very, very good questions of you. I'll get to them in a while. Yeah. Like, but like, I remember in the first episode, the element that they kind of pitted us as if we were like two alphas going head to head with each other. I've already said I didn't feel that at all. I thought you were a completely different person to me, and I would say you probably thought I was a completely different person to you. Like, what's your perspective on that?
I don't think you know, sometimes when you're looking, like we're in a jar, right? And it's very hard to read the label from inside the jar. You can only read it from the outside. So I definitely,
very good. Very good. I like that.
I don't think that we are consciously, maybe subconsciously, could have been like, these two guys are going head to head. But like, I'll give you an example. When they turned around and said, he's after saying the thing about his shoes 3 times or about packing the bags, you know, type of thing. What actually happened there in reality was like half the people were in the room. You were giving people advice, all right, which was like good advice. And then when the other people came back and was like, Connor, listen, tell those guys again what you just said. So that was the reason why you repeated yourself, as opposed to, I want to be standing up and everybody listen to me, you know? Yeah. So that would have been my thing. I didn't feel any like, all right, we're going head to head here. At the same time, though, I can appreciate that my personality can be a little bit like treat things as a bit of a competition, but it didn't feel like we were doing that in the moment, if that makes sense.
I didn't feel like there was a passing of the baton back and forth, like of like
It's your go.
You,
It's your go.
You talk now and all this kind of stuff. Like, right, your background, right? Because this is what I talked about on the podcast as well. Is you're coming from like a professional background where you're running courses. You are the DS.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? In that way. So you are their counterpart in your world.
Yeah.
So like you're leading courses, you're telling people what to do because these people are all coming in because you know what to do and they don't.
Yeah.
So like, do you think that like informed the way that you were interacting with people on the show? Do you think that that's what people would have seen if they saw everything?
Yeah, I suppose there's probably a few things there. I think that, you know, in terms of what I didn't probably realise, and maybe I was a bit naive going into the show, that it's like, hey, dude, it's a TV show. So although you're handed over and they just film what happens, there has to be a story arc made, because otherwise it'd be just like a load of really fit, strong people like running up hills and carrying each other, which is kind of maybe a bit boring. You know, so without having a kind of TV element in there, and I hope that doesn't ruin things for anybody, but that's the reality. They're going to, you know, if there's a good guy, maybe we need a bad guy, or we need people going head to head. And
I remember you messaging me, I don't know, was it after episode 2, and you were like, I'll be the Bane, you be Batman. I just thought that was brilliant. That's all it said, and I was like, this is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
But it also comes from it, like, that's a message that comes from a guy that's comfortable as well in terms of who you are, like, you know what I mean? So I think that's the element I really got from it too.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to go back to maybe I'm the type of person that, like, even if you just put me in a room, people are going to recognise me, or they're going to, like, I'm going to stand out a little bit. And maybe some of my personality does want a pat in the back, or they do want to be a little bit more out there. And look, there's negatives and positives to that. It's like, listen, if you run your own business and you work in the fitness space, it's like, if you're like shrinking violet, it's like, not a lot's going to happen for you. So it's probably having an understanding. And if I had have watched the show, maybe I would have known, like, this whole concept of the grey man.
Yes.
So that's one idea. But then the other thing is, like, I was just me, you know, take it or leave it. Now, again, you know, that's, you know, I am probably a little bit louder. I am maybe a little bit more out to the front. And some people are going to love it and some people are going to hate it. But one thing I would say is that very often I know, listen, I can be doing seminars, and we had a guy from Mayo before, and he stood up, Levi, and he goes, when I got here today, I thought you were a fucking bollocks. But I realise now that you're actually an alright guy. And this was 5 hours later. Do you know how?
When was this?
This was a seminar we were doing, you know.
Right.
So we'd have a load of people. There could be 50 people in a room, and, you know, we're teaching them various things.
Yes.
And I would be kind of alright with that. Like, I don't mind necessarily being disliked, but I wouldn't go out of my way to try and hurt somebody. I wouldn't go out of my way to be obnoxious, or, you know, that type of thing. So it's like, somebody just doesn't like it. It's like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah. I like, so you think that, I suppose, you've become kind of comfortable with that, you know, maybe an element of Marmite, where it's like, you're either going to fucking like me or not. And, like, I'm comfortable with who I am.
I think to be honest with you, the longer somebody's in my company, the more they're going to turn around and like you. Do you know what I mean? But I can appreciate as well that I can conflict with some people on the get-go.
Yeah.
And again, you could turn around, or I could turn around and say, is that a me problem or is that a them problem?
Yes.
Now, maybe not, like, in the show, in the DS, that's a different thing. They're looking for very specific character traits. But if you're talking more globally, I do think that there is an element to the Irish psyche and personality where it's like, keep your head down, don't put your head above the parapet. It's, you know, be humble. And all those things are important, but, you know, you spend a little bit of time in America, especially when it comes to business, like, you're going to be told straight up, it's like, dude, get yourself out there, you know?
Do you know who talks about this quite often is Kanye West?
Yeah,
right?
I can imagine.
You know, he is a pure fucking Marmite.
Yeah.
His fans adore him, like, undyingly love him. And then there's other people who's like, Kanye's a fucking dickhead, right?
Yeah.
And so what he says is like, I'm confident, and I'm gonna say that I'm confident, and you should be confident.
Yeah.
You should do those things.
I think maybe there's confidence, cocky, and then arrogance. And there's a continuum there. Now, I would say the confidence piece, but some people could have taken that up as he's a bit arrogant, or he's a bit too cocky. And again, I can understand that in a kind of military type setting. And even, you know, go back to the thing that we said about the Navy SEALs. I think they would nearly celebrate a bit of, you know, it's just a different mentality and a different psyche, maybe.
Yeah.
But I can also understand that, right, listen, I can be a bit of a know-it-all. So imagine, Ray's there. It's like, right, me and you, we're in the Rangers now. It's like, dude, we're breaking in this door. One stick of dynamite or C4, whatever they put on it. And I'd be like, fuck it, a stick and a half will do. Hostages are all dead on the inside. It's like, oh shit, maybe we made a mistake there.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I fucking told you, one stick.
Oh, for fuck's sake. That is, see, this is where the element that they're coming from. Like,
100%.
I'm going to bring in a question here from Carl, right?
Yeah.
Who said, because we're talking about this, what all I'm hearing here is about a battle between acting on a show or authenticity, right?
Yeah.
And what he says is, if you could go back, would you act differently, like what they wanted, or would you just remain true to who you are?
Well, look, I think you can be true to who you are and change your personality slightly. So, look, we've dropped some F-bombs on here, and I've heard your podcast again. Maybe if you're sitting beside your granny, would you talk a little differently? So you're still being true to who you are, but you can, you have a certain scenario. Again, the reason why I didn't watch the show was, see, jumping off bridges and crawling through pipes and being buried alive. Everybody was like, oh, they're going to bury you alive. I wouldn't do that for fun. Like, literally, I'm not going to do any crazy shit like that for fun. So it's like, my thing was, I don't want to see that and build up this apprehension about, oh, this is going to come. I said, listen, I'm just going to go, arrive. Whatever they tell me to do, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to react to them. I'm going to be respectful to them. And I think in front of those, I was all those things. And then when they weren't there is when we were talking. But if 8 wasn't there, for example, a lot of like that whole narrative, the show wouldn't have been there, because it's like he was the one who said, "Oh, he's sitting down," and he kind of, he kind of looking around to say, "I'm finished first." And it's like, was I? I don't know.
From someone who has, from me, right, who has watched the other seasons, right,
Yeah.
there was no one ever painted in this way in particular. Actually, to be honest with you, a lot more people got a more even amount of airtime.
Yeah.
Right, than this season. Because to be honest with you, like, I was actually very surprised at the level of my involvement and your involvement from those first 3 episodes. Because like, we were really, like, they were really building up stories about us. Obviously, look, everybody else got their time as well. Like, but I think that really, I think that's one of the reasons why I got so many questions, and because of some people were interested.
The thing as well, again, it's kind of like, so from the production people's point of view, it's like, well, dude, right? Yeah, maybe you came across slightly bad in some people's eyes, people that don't know you, all right? Because maybe that's the story arc that we drove, but you got loads of airtime. So did you want to be the grey man and like leave the show halfway through or towards the end and nobody see it, or did you want airtime? I don't know. I was just doing it as a bit of an experience. I didn't, or maybe didn't even think that much into it,
Yeah, hindsight as well. Like, I think, I've talked here about hindsight and about regret and about holding all these things. So, like, the thing is, the past doesn't actually exist only in our mind. You know what I mean? The past and the future doesn't exist. The only thing that exists really is the now, like, And so, like, I really do think, to be honest with you, like, you were just who you were at that time, like, and I think that was the way, you were going to do it, right? Now, there is another thing that I wanted to pull about was, right? This is the big scene, really, that people kind of thought of was when you were in bed, when you hopped into bed, right? And I talked about it as well, and I just thought I just talked about it from experiential wise, right? The thing is, I spent 4 years in the FCA, so I was in billets before, and I was in this where it's natural to gravitate around the room to kind of check, all right, is this fella's uniformed on all right? And it was so strange when we were in the FCA, there'd be one guy who'd be really good at it sounds so strange because it's being out of it, there'd be one guy who'd be really good at ironing pants, right? And there'd be a guy, he'd be ironing the pants, and people would make his bed and do those things for him while he's doing that. And then there'd be other guy, he's good at fucking ironing out shirts, or there's another guy who's good at polishing boots, and they'd teach you then what they do and all this kind of stuff, right? So for me, it was natural to kind of wait until everybody is ready, right? To kind of just all of us tuck in at that time. You're coming from, and this is, I don't want to put fucking words in your mouth here now. You're coming from a performance background, right? Where you know that eating, sleeping, hydration, incredibly important, right? And so what was kind of, you probably didn't
Yeah.
give a second thought of just like, I'm just going to head into bed because I need sleep?
Yeah, well, kind of what happened there. So, I think, so what was happening, just to kind of roll back on that scene, we were all told to stand up. And then you explained this last week, but somebody got pulled out about 15 minutes later. They came back in. They were all shook up, bit wet. You're like, what the hell happened there? Then another person got pulled out and was like, whoa. And then this kept going on and on and on. And I think about halfway through it, I was looking around the room and I kind of had a bit of an inkling that it's like, I think some of the stronger people, physically stronger people, are still standing. So is this kind of a little bit of a test here? So we went through everybody. And one thing to say as well, I think that scene probably took about maybe 2.5 hours-ish, somewhere between 2 and 3 hours. And some people were brought back in and they were sat down on the box and they looked around and said, go asleep. So the rest of us were standing there, and some people were able to have a little snooze to the side. So I was pulled out last. And when I came back into the room, my initial thing was like, what's going on here? Everybody was running around. So number 8 came over and said to me, we're getting ready for bed. And I turned back to him and said, when I'm ready, can I get into bed? And he said, yes. So my thought process was, listen, I've been the last man standing. As quickly as I can, get ready for bed, get into bed. So I wrapped up stuff, got ready for bed, jumped into bed. And probably a minute or 2 minutes after, some other people start jumping into bed. So if you see the scene, now, I think some other people are up brushing their teeth, I don't know, washing themselves, whatever they're doing. I was like, do you know what? I can wait till tomorrow to brush my teeth. I need sleep now. So that was kind of my mindset. Now, that was, and again, you could turn around and go, is that slightly selfish? Because I was just concerned, listen, I've got to get my rest, my recovery to get up. But obviously, they didn't show that. And then he came back on telly, like, whatever, the next day or the next episode. And the narrative that they pushed was, we were all up late together. And he just, he only got into bed because we were up late. And that's not really how it happened,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I actually was, because I was actually given, I was talking about that scene about, I was up for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I was in the last like 5 people.
Yeah.
And then, so when you're done, like there's another 45 minutes, like, you know what I mean, where you were up, plus the time it took me to do it.
Yeah.
Which is actually fairly okay because at least you're walking and you're not
moving.
standing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're walking. So like, look, there's an element of that too where you're like, where like there's outside factors that you don't get to. They just wouldn't be able to show on the show. Like, you know what I mean? Because I think that was a thing where people. Did you might have gotten a lot of flack for that from the DS, you know what I mean? Just about that element of it. Now, when you were woken up and you were brought out and you made jump in the well, as we got to know so well.
Yeah.
When you did that, like when you came back into the room, and you kind of settled down. Let's say after that situation, right? It's all kind of moving forward. Did you have any kind of sense of reflection about teamwork or anything like that? About like,
I think my kind of mindset a little bit at the thing was like the DS were the enemy. So you kind of spoke about them like they're trying to teach me this lesson, Mm-hmm. The way I probably viewed them was they're just here to try and break me, and I'm not going to let them break me.
Okay.
So it was probably like me against them type of thing. As opposed to maybe you might have looked at it a little bit more of a collaborative type thing. But the way I seen it in my head was no matter what I did, they were going to say the opposite. Okay. So, an example, when we first got there and we were running up the hill and that lady that was, she had hypothermia and I tried to help her. I was like, don't touch her. All right, don't touch her. Run on. So a little bit of it felt like that. Now, that being said, and I had to put this caveat in there, in reflection, looking back, maybe not on the day, but looking back, I probably am a little bit more. Like, I've never been in an army or like that. I've never been in the Scouts, never even played on like a football team. Run your own business. Of course, like you're doing it with your partnerships and that type of thing. You've got people there that are helping you. But I am probably a little bit more self-driven. And I'd say another element of my personality is like I'm crazy competitive. Right. And maybe I was kind of competing against the people in the show and the DS and not then as encompassing everybody together, But I do think as well, like that the narrative of, right, it's this guy against this guy, it's like that's what they were wanting to show. And again, there has to be some sort of storyline. So 100%, it's not like I've got any problems with that from the production point of view or anything like that.
Yeah. I definitely got from my father just little pieces of advice that really did me well in the show about that, just about like, the lads are there to to break you, but also to try and bring your potential out.
Yeah.
And that's because that's what he knows of the selection process
Yeah.
in the army is, regardless of whether you see somebody as being the strongest, if you see something in them,
Yeah.
you just try and see how you're going to be able to bring that out. Or can you make them doubt themselves to that point where they're either kind of going, I'm gonna shirk and shrink from it, or I'm gonna face it.
Well,
you know?
and you know, I think like from me looking at it now, it's like the people who will do very well in that situation, they just put their head down and they do a thing and they're not looking for any praise for it. That's
Yes.
it. They just do it. And you can imagine in the military setting, it's like these guys, whatever work they're doing, nobody knows about it.
Yes.
And it's obviously very important.
Yes.
But they don't need to get a pat on the back. They
Yes.
don't need to get a thumbs up. They don't need badges. It's just they do their work. And for, until this show came on board, they just melted into the background. Nobody knew anything about them. Now, me, on the other hand, I would say, I could probably do a thing, but probably want a little pat on the back for you. Aren't you a good lad?
Yes.
And there probably is an element of that where I think, like some people said, was it the bed thing that threw you out? I don't know. Was it the rabbits? Right? So
Okay. Yeah,
we're
go
all
on.
skinning a rabbit.
Yes.
And I was like, finished me rabbit. I was like, we are doing another one. Skinned the second rabbit. And I think Stephen turned around to me and goes, have you done this before? I was like, I must have seen it on Discovery Channel. And Ray, actually, I think at one of the things was like, fucking Discovery Channel, you have a fucking answer for everything. So it's that kind of maybe bit of your personality, which is a bit more outgoing and, maybe you need a little pat in the back for doing things, as opposed to the other people who's just head down, very strong and going to do the thing. So that's a nice thing to reflect on, a nice space to look at and kind of say, if you are strong in a certain aspect, right, how are you making the other people around you feel?
Yes.
How are you using that strength to help other people or to boost other people up as well, which is a kind of interesting thing to be, or an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, like I think that's a fucking great point, because I definitely, like, I grew up being like this pleaser of people as well, right? Because like I wanted to fit in, because I don't think I ever felt like I did fit in certain areas. Like I didn't fit in school at all. I didn't even fit in like with like sports. Like I played rugby as a kid. Where I first started to fit in was Thai boxing, right? And then I gravitated heavily towards that because I did like to fit in. So I did like that, well done, good training session.
Yeah.
I did like that, fuck it, you fought phenomenally. I like getting my hand raised in the middle of the ring. And I think I brought that, some of those pat on the back elements coming in. And I just sworn down before I went into the show, I'm not doing it for that. I'm not doing it for that. But there's a certain element of you that, like, going back to caveman times, we like being useful.
Well, you want to be rewarded as well.
Yeah, we want to be useful to the tribe. We want to be seen as this. Like, this is why, like, even fucking thousands of years ago, there was chieftains. There was the head of the.
A little bit of that, like putting that word alpha out there. But it's like, listen, if you have a big gorilla or something like that, if he's going to be the alpha, he's going to stand up and say, like, look at me. It's like, it's that bit, and
he's going to beat his chest. And he's going to let everybody know
like
that
Gladiator.
He's fucking
have I not entertained you? No, we're not saying that we're going to that extreme. But I think something as well, and this is a good reflection for the people to think about or to look on in their own life. And especially, I try and map everything back, like all of our life experience. I try and map it back to the work I do. So for me, when I'm kind of thinking back about the show, there's probably 3 characters of people that have done a show like that or that will do a show like that. There's the person who's running away from something. It's like, no matter what they achieve, no matter what they get, there's another thing to run away from. They've got something in the past. In another way you said, the past doesn't exist, it only exists in our mind. But we run away from something, we kind of have to prove ourselves in some way, shape or form. There's probably the people then, outside of that run away from something, there's probably the people that have something to prove. It's like, I'm going to prove such and such wrong, or somebody told me I can't do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to prove them wrong. And then there's the people that are in it for the experience. They're just pure, I'm in the moment, having this experience. And I think the people who are in it for the experience are the ones who are going to do the best.
Yes.
And for me, there's probably an element of me, I'm going to prove I can do this. So it's that thing of like, I'm the underdog and I'm going to prove myself wrong. And I did touch on this in the show. You spoke about being honest in the interviews. And again, I was a bit apprehensive about them showing this and they didn't. And half of me was like, fuck, I'm glad they didn't show that. But they were kind of delving in on why you doing it, why you doing it, why you doing it. And before in the kind of time leading up to the show, I went and done some work with a coach, again, a business coach. But like all great coaches, it brings it back to the self. And they start talking about childhood. And growing up, I suppose I still am now, but I was dyslexic, and that would have caused me a lot of issues in school, especially primary school. And as they were going through this, I never really had an emotion or a word to describe how I felt about it. But the word she put out there was like, you're ashamed of yourself. And that 100%, I know it sounds silly, but you're looking back as an adult man at when you were 6 or 7 or 8 or 10. But you were ashamed of being dyslexic. You were ashamed of not being able to do things the way the other kids could do it. And as a result of that, it probably created this inner dialogue or inner mentality that, number one, I'm going to work harder than everybody else. Number two, I'm not going to let anybody speak down to me, because I would have felt, you're told, stand up and read a book, and you can't read it. You've got 30 other children looking at you going, he can't read. You know what I mean? And that was a fairly, something that I didn't realise at the time, but a lot of pain and emotion that I was holding on to. And I never, this is the first time I've spoke about it. I've never spoke to anybody about this. And on the show, I did speak about it, and I broke down and actually started crying. And it's like, fuck, I do not cry. Like, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with crying. It's just not something that I really do.
I'm the same. I don't have that kind of emotional.
Yeah,
trigger.
and it's. I suppose we all have the emotion, but I would suppress it.
Yes,
and that goes back to what we spoke about the deaths in the family and things like that. It's kind of suppress it. But when I was going into the show, they asked you, what's your biggest fear? And you're like, are you afraid of snakes? Are you afraid of heights? Claustrophobic? I was like, I'm afraid of vulnerability.
Yeah.
I do not want anybody to see my weaknesses in any way, shape or form. And that's probably why you create this internal character of, I'm going to, big, strong, boxing, Thai boxing. As a man, you kind of want to protect yourself, emotionally, but also physically. And that's maybe why we gravitate towards some of these physical things, But the fact that I was able to go through the show, speak about that, realise that, and it's like when you name something and you give it a label, all of a sudden it doesn't exist anymore. It's like the boogeyman, you open up the wardrobe and it's like, he's not in there, it's a t-shirt. It's like, all right, it's only a t-shirt. And I think when you're able to label something like that, you become empowered, and it doesn't disempower you, if that makes sense. So I think if nothing else came from the show, and that was something that came from it, was like, holy shit, that is huge on a personal level. Yeah. So I'd actually be very grateful for the whole experience, even for that thing, not talking about the other things that we learned,
That's man, I'm listening to you here now, and I think that's fucking incredible. Because that's what the show can do.
Yeah.
If you open your mind to it, you know what I mean. And I think I left the show with huge lessons that I'm kind of even still unpacking.
You're unpacking them,
as the show goes on,
yeah.
And I honestly think, man, it's just that is Ray's book.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read it. Ranger 22, right? It's a fantastic book, and I think everybody would benefit from it. But he talks about that being a ranger and having that high level of honesty and that high level of accountability has helped him in every facet of life.
Yeah.
And it's huge, isn't it?
And look, going back, Ray has that bit. I think it's chapter 1. It's like it's in your bones, or it's born into you, that type of thing. And I think what he's getting at there is we all have certain character traits. We are, there's an essence of who we are. Now that essence can change given on, where you grow up, your environment, the people you surround yourself with. But there is an element of us that, there's a certain essence. And I think for me, what I've probably realised is that, it's looking back on how we're motivated, what pushes us. And there probably was an element of me that's doing a thing like that to prove, look, I can do it. And again, it's that remnants of the child who couldn't do things. And now it's like, look, I can do this big, hard thing. Look at me.
Yes.
And that's the wrong reason to be there. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I do know with it, in any special forces, there is guys that can get through it. But they're only going for the badge. They're not really going for the work and what it means. It's like, look at me, I've got the badge. And then they just melt into the background.
But what it sounds like to me is you started off going for the badge, and you actually fucking ended up thinking, whoa, I actually was here to fucking discover more about myself.
Yeah. No, and I think that is in the retrospect, and I think it's like anything. So people come to us and they're looking to get into the fitness industry, or they're looking to lose weight or get healthy. And we focus on the outcome, lose X amount of weight, or lift X amount of weight, or get fit, or get strong, whatever that means. The journey is actually really where the learning is. So all the training we've done before, and then the reflection after, and the actual event in itself can very often be a bit of a letdown. Look, you've done some races and things. When you get to the end, you're probably like, it's this big euphoria, and then all of a sudden 5 minutes later it's like, well, right, nobody cares. It's like, I've just ran 60 kilometers or 100 or whatever the hell. It's like, nobody really cares. In the greater scheme of things, it doesn't matter. So it's what we've learned before and it's what we learned after, I think, is so much more important, you know?
Yeah, hugely. Like I remember finishing my first marathon and having that, oh Jesus, unreal class, and then just like I was like through my 4th or 5th pint or something after the race, and I was like, this is
a little letdown.
This is just normal life, and like this is the thing, life is just normal. You know what I mean? So then fast forward a year and a bit, I finished a 200-mile race, which was far more prestigious, and I was only the second person in the history of the race to do it, and it was such a different feeling, right? I crossed the line, and yes, I had the woo, and I shouted and all this kind of stuff, because I just actually don't, it was like finding out a certain type of news. I just didn't know how to actually process what was happening. But what I noticed afterwards was like, I was just the same. I was just the same. I was the same person before and after, which I thought was a huge step forward, you know? But like, that's the thing. It's like, if you were going in, which I was, going into the show to finish, and I'd finish at all costs, if you're going in with that mentality, and if you're stepping on the train and you're like, oh, this is a train journey now for 3 hours, and I'm just gonna fucking look down at the floor, and I'm just gonna get through this 3 hours, and that's it. You're not going to probably, you're not going to be able to see or experience as much as if you just fucking looked out the window and took in what was passing and took in the journey of what that was. And I think that's a fucking great point that you're getting to as well, is that, yes, we go in with certain ideals and certain notions, and I think this is what's fucking great about, I suppose, the Ranger Wing and the DS, is that they won't necessarily tell you that they're fucking teaching you great lessons and they're giving you great opportunities for self-reflection, but you just experience them, like, you know. Now, I've gotten some great questions, right, about this stuff. So the next thing was, after all of those things, and after all of these happenings, throughout the 3 days, I did feel like, right, for me, just as a person, not as a participant, but as somebody watching the show, I thought, fuck it, they're not really giving him a fucking fair shake, because within the stuff that you're doing, there's also really, really good things that you're doing and good things that are happening, right? And like, I think a lot of people felt that it was unfair when you were dismissed, right? And like, I know when I was talking about it in the last episode, I know where the guys were coming from. Yeah. The guys were coming from a kind of a team element, and they were like, right, if there's somebody who's not, it's like a football team. If there's a player on the football team that's taking fucking shots on goal and it's fucking blind and going left and right all the time, he's going to be subbed off, right? And if he's not sharing the ball, if people are in better positions than him and he's not sharing the ball, you take him off as the manager. Feel like that was a certain element that was happening. But I suppose, and what Dan asked when we were on the podcast, Dan, the producer of
the voice in the background,
the omnipresence that we have here, the owner of Primal Production Studios, right? He asked me, was there anything that you could have said or done to keep you in the show at that time? I said no, because I think that these guys are like, they're very black and white, and they'll very much kind of go, right, this is the call, and they'll make the call, right? What, like, when you were in that situation and you were told to give the armband, right? Was it, I thought when I was there looking at it happen, I was like, oh, this is a test, and they're going to give it to him, or whatever the case may be. What did you think around that time?
Do you know, I think if we circle back and kind of the fair thing, all right, I think they might have just decided, I don't want this guy here early on. And it was just going to be a matter of time. They were just waiting for me to fail and waiting for a rationale or a reason. And, you know, the reason at the end was he's really mouthy and he didn't do as good as some of the other guys. So, listen, get rid of him. And is that fair? Is it not fair? Well, the way I'd put it is this, is like, look, they're looking for a certain character for the Special Forces. The Special Forces is not fair. It's life or death. So I think, look, the life I live, the consequences of your actions are tiny. It's like, hey, you know, do this Facebook ad, it didn't work, do another one. And, you know, you kind of jump into things. The consequences for those people, it could be life and death. So I don't, that whole fair thing, it doesn't really bother me. You know, I think, look, they knew who they wanted and they didn't want me. And then that was that. I think, you know, I don't know. You'd have to ask them, like, why did they do it at that particular time? I think, like, some of the events that were coming after, looking at Series 4, I probably would have done quite well on. Going back to then the longer walk, I probably wouldn't have done as well on that, you know? So that might have got me in anyway. But I think going back, they know who they want. They know who they don't want. And I think that's fair. That, like, hey, listen, this is a selection process, you know?
Yeah. I think that, like, when I really did think, like, you know, because I saw you as, look, I see you in different light, because I'm doing my own shit.
Yeah.
I'm doing my own things. I'm at a different side of the room, even, because it's like you're looking at your perimeter, let's say, like, of people that are around. And so I didn't get to see everything that they saw of you, right? So I thought, look, they're, like, this is a test.
Yeah.
They're going to do this in front of us to show us that nobody
above that type of
exactly
thing.
above the ethos that they're looking for in the special forces. And then you didn't come back, you know. And I was like, fuck, you know,
what's going on here?
Like, it's like fucking hell, you know. And so a lot of people asked as well, and they think, what was the process afterwards? Because I see, you see all the time when people give their armbands over, they get a kind of a well done, you know, fantastic, you know, you gave it your effort. What was the kind of closing out? Like?
Yeah, I do think, like, a lot of people did say that to me. They were like, holy shit, you know, like, they didn't say anything to you. And I think from a production point of view, they can't be like, right, you're a May Fainer, you're a DS watcher. Oh, by the way, that was really great. See you later. So I obviously ran up the stairs, and then one of the production team came and got me. And in fairness, like, the guys who were left, I think it was Ray and Jer, they come in, like what they do with everybody, shook the hand, had a little bit of a laugh, had a joke, and they only had a few minutes. They were there, we had a little chat for a few minutes, and then off they bounced into the next event. So from their point of view, they did come and do everything that they would have done with everybody else. It just happened off camera, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I think, I actually think that people, especially even me, I was like, I want closure, you know? I want closure on this. I want to know what happened afterwards, you know? And I think that's our nosiness, you know what I mean, of people who just want to know what was the kind of feeling like afterwards.
I think as well, look, from my point of view, like, I didn't take anything personal. Now, not to say, like, you know, something wouldn't annoy you or whatever, but I didn't take anything personal. I was like, listen, you have to respect the type of work that these people do. And look, I don't know what they do. You don't know what they do. We don't really understand it. But, you know, you've read books and you're trying to get a little glimpse inside that kind of curtain. And it's like they're professionals at what they do. They know exactly what they need and exactly what they want. And, you know, if you don't fit into that bubble, if it's a small thing, a little thing, that's it. It's like you're gone, you know?
Yeah. I must say I've admired your honesty and your reflection in kind of going through these things, because, like, that's the element of it that people don't actually get to see, is the personal development that happens and that goes forward. I've got another question here, right, from my buddy Finn, right, he's a good friend of mine from Cork, and he asked a really, really good question, right, is because, like, we've already spoken that when you were actually in, and this was this with the psychologist? That you had this thing, because it
was a business coach where we're kind of talking about the dyslexia and that type of thing. It kind of opened up and it kind of expanded into that, you know?
Yeah. And did you have a sit down with the psychologist
not
after
afterwards.
we filled out that form?
No, I don't think so. Not after.
We filled out when we filled out those, you know, those peer review forms, basically, where we just had to give a fucking review of everybody. I was the last person as well.
No, I didn't fill out any form like that.
Okay.
No.
You didn't fill out any like where we were looking at all of us and given a score.
No.
Maybe that, because I remember we were given pen and pad and we had to write things down or whatever to do it. But I had an interview with a psychologist. Maybe this is yet to come. I don't know. Maybe we're giving away things. But yeah, look, basically the like, I think it gives you an awful lot of time to just have a think of how you're going to act from now. I definitely felt it when I had the interview with the two boys, when the two lads took me in for this technical questioning.
Yeah.
I definitely felt when I left, I was like, right. I definitely wanted to speak out at certain times and stop myself and said, right, okay, I don't want to I don't want to be the mouth. If I can say something to someone without going, hey, number blah blah blah, if I can go over to them and go, here, look, your bag is this way, blah blah, let's try and have a look at this, or your water pipe is dirty, you know, let's wash that off, that kind of way, right? And what Finn asks here is not only during the show, but has watching yourself back on the show made you reflect on how you carry yourself, which is a very good question, I think, like, you know?
I think when you say watch back the show, not really, because it's like, we were there for whatever, 30, 40 hours by the time I got thrown out. And they're only showing elements of it. And again, they're trying to portray a picture. So I'll give you another little example. It's like after they said to us, all right, these two lads are the alphas. The next episode, it was like your man number 8 come on. He goes, sorry, was it number 8? It was number 8, yeah. Number 8 is like, Connor, 11 is, he's kind of listening. And they show you sweeping the floor. And he turns around to me and goes, where does the big thing go for with all the food goes in? And then they just cut it there. So it was like, I carried that down. I was helping clean, and just the same as the way everybody else was. But it's like, he's sitting down, he's sweeping the floor, he's the good guy, he's the bad guy. And that's kind of what the people are portraying.
This axis that they were creating.
Yeah. But that being said, I can appreciate that, like, look, even sometimes, right, I wouldn't look at myself as like a big guy, but in comparison to some other people, I would be, so I can be big and I can be loud. I can be intimidating, not intimidating in a physical, but it's like I can be quite direct with people. And it's like, have my idea, right, this is the way things should be done. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes, even if I am right, I can reflect and say, right, I need to kind of soften those edges down a little bit, type of way. And again, I think some of that might come back from that, you're creating this protection around you in terms of your persona. And I think, talking about the interview or the psychologist, like, I've had many a sleepless night from the show. And I think it's probably because they're attacking, your character or how you perceive yourself, your self-view, your worldview. And then you're like, fuck, am I that way? And it's like, there probably is elements of that is, but you understand that everything is on a continuum. And on a TV show, it's black and white.
Yes.
They haven't got the time or the space to show that. So you have to understand that. And I think you probably do give too much energy to the, fuck, maybe I am a bit of, maybe I'm not a team player. Maybe I could have done this or I could have done that. But I think in retrospect, it's like, no, I'm happy enough with who I am and we can all improve. But anybody that knows me are like, holy shit, Jay, that's not how you were at all.
Yeah.
So I think from my point of view, I was kind of happy with that. Like, you should look at some of the Facebook comments. It's like, fucking hell.
Really?
You'd want to have a thick skin.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was even looking back because, like, I made the mistake of getting Twitter.
Yeah,
so
man.
I got Twitter when this thing comes out. And, like, there's people that are mad into Twitter. Like, you know, I don't know about this kind of Twitter culture. Like, you know what I mean? Because I only downloaded it the other day. But, like, there's people doing live updates of like hashtag Hell Week of all these different things that are happening. Like, and like, there was even certain comments about me, right? And on it, like, fucking mantras and all this kind of shit, like, and you're just like, I just thought it was very funny because I think, like, that element of it is quite funny, but it is good to hear that you know yourself in that way, that you're just like, yeah, look, they can portray me in a certain way, but if I know who I am and stay true to that, then that's the most important thing.
I think the important thing, again, to clearly get across here, you've got the DS, and I couldn't disagree necessarily with what they're saying. Again, it's like, right, that's their opinion. They know what they're talking about. And then you've got the TV point of view. Do you know the type way? Yes. And the two of those are different. It's like the TV bit was a bit like, you're a bit of a bollocks there. You have to screw me over.
Yes.
But it was like, then you turn around and go, well, listen, you're on a TV show. Not to say what they expect, but it's like, listen, we've got to make a good TV show. So it's like, all right, listen, got over that, move on. But from anything that the DS said or did, I wouldn't have any grievances or like be like, oh, they should have done this, or
yes.
They only hate me because I'm a dub.
Fuck's sake. And it was
hate the dubs.
Yeah, everybody hates the dubs. It just so happened that there was like fucking
See, we don't know that because like if you go outside the M50, we don't know what goes on outside there.
Fuck's sake. I think I was the only Cork person out of the 28 people. Like, and it's like, there's only enough room for one Cork person to do the whole thing. You know what I mean? But I was actually talking to my pops about this, right? And he was saying to me, he was like, because of the way that they were kind of doing things, it could have just as easily, the coin could have been flipped and I could have been the bad guy. You know what I mean? And
I think it's like going up that hill is probably the beginning and the end, because at the end of that, he turned around and he was like, listen, you're going to be gone by the end of the day. And I was, so they told me then, when we were all queuing up. And I think for me, what I also realised, and this is another important reflection that I had, it's like I probably, if I'm putting my hand on my heart, 100% didn't, like, I wasn't 100% in being there. We already spoke about the time scale that got us to there. And again, in the lead up, like in December, I had an auntie who passed away as well, so it was kind of 3 deaths in that 2020, COVID, all that type of stuff. At an auntie had passed away. And again, I couldn't go to her funeral because there was only 15 allowed into the church. And the day we were going up that hill, the ashes were being spread, the family. And as soon as I hit the incline, I was like, fuck, my legs aren't really working here. I know you spoke about that as well. I was like, fuck me, it's like my legs aren't really working here. But I couldn't focus. I couldn't, the way when you're doing something really hard, you just detach your body and your mind, and you might count from 1 to 10, or you might sing a song. I was like, fuck, wonder what the girls are doing at home. It's like, wonder what they're doing around now, type way. And I couldn't kind of go in that extra gear. So I think that's one thing from a mental standpoint. I wasn't as strong, and that's probably why. Whatever anybody else says about me, I'm going to be my biggest critic. I'm actually very hard on myself. And I think that's probably some of the stuff that I was struggling with after. It's like, I should have done this or I should have done that. But that being said, even if we take all of that out and you put us all fresh legs, all rest, I wouldn't have been able to keep up with some of the guys there that are like 8 times, bleeding Ironman, or, doing 200-kilometer races. That wouldn't have been my strong suit. But I could have kept up with, some of the more physical events,
Yeah.
So I think that's another reflection that I have to put out there and be like, it wasn't like, that's just, I wasn't as strong in that thing,
When you were finally off, right, and they took the armband and actually it was Dan again who had mentioned you. He was like, he was very impressed by the reflection of like, I just wasn't what they were looking for, you know what I mean? Which I thought was great.
I think they might have been trying to get me to, to kind of be like, oh, they're bollockses, or this or that. I was like, listen, like what we said here, it's like, listen, they're doing a job.
Yeah.
And, again, if somebody took your family hostage and somebody had to go and rescue them, you don't want somebody fair. You want somebody efficient.
Yes.
And I mean, listen, they're going to be efficient at what they do.
Yeah,
it's
they're
like,
going to...
Knock, knock, can we have your children back? It's like, no, fucking, we want to kick the door in and take people out,
Yeah. That is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
That's a great way of fucking seeing it, because like that's the thing is like they're like, my dad says to me, like, there'd be lads that would pass selection, which is 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a 3-week selection in the Rangers, and then there's 9-month skills course, and you can fail at any time.
Yeah.
Just because you get selected. You're only selected for the course.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't get your green beret after selection, right? You'll get it after the 9-month course, and then it's just, you're literally
continuous.
leaving
It's
one course
forever,
to fucking just go on courses and courses and go abroad and do tours and stuff, right? So there's lads that literally on the last week of that 9-month course will fail.
Yeah.
They're waiting for a certain time, that chink in the armor of just like where someone's going to show, because there are people that will get through it all the way till the end that will not show their true colours, let's say, right? So what I thought, like when you were saying there about like you don't want people fair, you want people that are efficient. They are very good at what they do, and they're very good judge of character. And when you were off the show and you did that, did you feel a sense of relief as a viewer?
As a viewer, looking back at it.
Yeah.
Like I think, I think that there was an ebb and a flow there. It's like, I had a feeling before that, knowing my input into the show, I had a feeling before it was shot that they were going to build it up. It's like, look at this guy, drop it down. Do you know what I mean? But I think they were very fair, and like, because again, they could shoot things in any which way, and they could show any person that was there, even the loveliest person, Declan. They could have showed, look, he's only asleep snoring. That lad's always asleep. So I think they were very fair. It's like they had a character, they had a story arc, but even by putting in that piece, showed a kind of, well, listen, at least he's honest. Type way.
100%. I think a lot of people got from that, and I actually went on to Twitter as well after that, and people were like, "Geez, I think it's a bit unfair, or I can't believe 22 is gone, or whatever." Like, because and it's just the way that people when you were taken off the show. And they did give you that opportunity to speak, you were just like, I just wasn't what they were looking for, which is a great thing to say. And when you saw then episode 4 come on, like just knowing that you weren't in the show, did you feel like there was you had a different sense of feeling? Because I know when I'm watching the show, my heart is fucking.
Well, you don't know what's coming, do you?
I'm reliving it, like, so my heart is fucking up in my throat.
I obviously, you kind of you know the people that are there. You have a little bit of an idea what they went through, and I thought it was like very emotional. First off, they were kind of on Kate's back. And it's a funny thing, right? Because it's like they're kind of getting right, if somebody is a little weaker in a certain thing for whatever reason, is it right to fight on and say, no, I'm going to fight on and I'm not going to give up. Or, because you could say that's quite a selfish attitude, but it's also, I'm never going to quit. So that there's a positive and a negative there potentially. But then it's like, well, you're holding up the team. So it's like, oh, fuck, should I give up for the team? And like, it's putting in this element of doubt. It's like, oh, and they done that with her. And then I think like Naomi was next.
Yes.
And again, you know, from the little you'd know these people, it's like, she would not be the type of person who would want to give up.
No.
But again, I think something as well for the women, and you know, I had a lot of admiration for them. It's not necessarily because they're women and doing it, but like at least 3 or 4 of the women got pretty badly injured in the fighting.
Absolutely.
So that had a huge impact on the level of discomfort, you know, their fitness, you know.
Orla, number 3, had her sternum ripped.
Yeah, cracked, I think.
Yeah. Her sternum was like tore, you know, which is just an incredibly painful thing to have when you have to strap a fucking bag across your chest. And
there's
everything.
me getting into bed a bit early, and everybody thinks I'm a bad guy, and some of the lads whack some girl. Like, for fuck's sake.
You know what I mean? Have your story straight, like. That first part, right, where we're doing the water evolution and then we're like carrying all the guns and all that kind of stuff, I call that Scratch 2.0, right? Because it's literally, it was just they were just going to keep going until they fucking lost a body, right? And they were just going to keep hammering away at it. The water evolution was really, really fucking tough. There was three exercises you had to do, and it was draining, and you could see as well, right? Naomi, because her rib was cracked, wasn't able to move or swim as well, so she was in the water for longer. And she didn't have the ability to balance on the rope as well, so she kept falling in. It takes ages for her to get out. Finally culminates in all of us being lined up, and they go, boom.
Yeah,
number
he just
12.
went in on her, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think for her, it wasn't that she was actually done. She was in a very bad physical state. But a lot of the people that come on this show, and including me and you, we get into bad physical states, but kind of have this idea that at least we'll be all right, and we'll be back in the billets, and we'll do that. And I think she had that mentality. Yeah. Absolutely. But why she gave her armband was, if you listen to the words they're saying to her, is, you're slowing up everybody. Everybody else is going to keep suffering until you give me that armband. And I think there was an element of that was just a test. Yeah. And if she goes, right, 12 is going to continue. Yeah. And we would have just kept on doing mad shit, and she might have survived. It's a tricky
thing. You don't know what is right and what is wrong there. It's
I
like,
think
Jesus.
She was being empathetic. Yeah. You know, she was being empathetic, and she was like, right, okay, if everybody's going to suffer because of me, I'll give them my armband. I don't think it was an element of, I'm done here. Yeah, you know, although I think she was definitely reaching a physical point where she was hypothermic and in a bad way with her ribs and stuff, you know.
Yeah, like and again, you know, talking about that episode, I think, you know, different elements of people's personality came out, you know, their kind of true self as well. Like Declan has to be, you know, just the nicest young guy you'll ever meet in your life.
So calm.
You know, just so sound. He's like just such a lovely young lad, you know. And I think that came across really, really well.
He got mad love on Twitter.
Yeah,
he got mad love on Twitter. Because I would say his DMs are absolutely
flying off the hook. He's Ireland's most eligible bachelor at the minute.
Oh my God. He's a hurley maker, which is just another like whimsical enough kind of job to be doing, like, and soundest dude ever, not a bad looking bloke either. Yeah. Look, Declan, if you don't find your wife after this show, boy,
there's something wrong.
There's something definitely wrong. And like, I think to like, he was one of those people that he was given a bit more airtime, but Jesus, he was one of those guys who just fucking got on with it. And
that's another, you know, we touched on this earlier. Somebody just puts their head down, just plods along. You know, they're just doing the work. Yeah. Where, you know, I can, again, be honest and say, you know, maybe I could do some of that, but I'd probably be a bit like, you, look at me. Do you know the type of way? Yeah. And again, I think it goes back to that competitive nature, where if you're a highly competitive person, in order for you to win, other people have to lose.
Yes.
And again, I'm putting that very bluntly, but there can probably be an element in that. And maybe that was, if you're thinking about your different characteristic traits, maybe that is the ultimate downfall. You know, being that competitive and not being able to rein that in and viewing the other people in the surrounding as, right, their competition to me to get to the end. There's only going to be 1 or 2 people who make it. I want to be one of those people, which means they can't be one of those people. To a certain extent, you know, not to say you think that out in the moment, but there's probably a bit of a narrative internally that goes like that, you know?
I took it the opposite way, right? I took it the opposite way where I was like, I really went into this thing where I was like, I want to keep as many people as possible because, and it's also, it's not just, I'm not here going, I'm so good at being a team player. It was a selfish thing as well.
Well, if they're helping you.
If there's more people there's more people to help me.
Yeah.
I'm going to obviously have more people to help, but there's more people going to help me. There's more people that are going to be heat seekers.
That was me.
You know, there's more people that are going to be heat seekers and they're going to be drawing attention away from me. So I might be able to get a bit of a breather while they're getting a bollock or whatever. So like there was those elements where I was like, if we keep as many people as possible around, then, you know, we'll be able to kind of, you know, I'll be able to maybe skipping through under the radar.
Yeah.
The next thing, right, was I really was interested to see how other people that weren't doing this particular event, how they would have fared in it. Yeah. How would you have fared down in Mizzen Head doing the heights, doing the crawling?
I think I think the heights thing I would have hated, but I would have done it. I think crawling across the thing probably would have been okay, upper body strength.
Yes.
The water thing now I might have actually got hard with because it's like I don't do well in the cold, but I'd say I would have got through it, you know? Yeah. I think the fire event, I probably would have done quite well in that.
Yes. Because it was
strong, you know, it's probably quite strength orientated, you
absolutely,
know?
It is. But look, you know what? It is strength orientated, and it also, they give you these little ropes with carabiners, right? Yeah. And they were like, we gave you them, you fucking use them. Yeah. And I was trying to think, I don't know how you're going to
what do you want to go do with this?
I thought about the fire thing, way too... practically. Yeah. I thought, this is a person, not a dummy. Yeah, so what they wanted you to do was hook the carabiner onto this little loop on the back of its neck. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to
strangle it.
So basically, okay, so I'm going to kill this person trying to save this person in my mind. Body. But I thought of it as real life and not an event. And that's what kind of was my downfall. Also, it's 300 degrees. You can't really think very well. So
and there's somebody shouting at you.
Exactly. And anybody who did do well in that, I give them mad props. You know what I mean? That was fantastic. You know, and I think I can improve in those type of environments. But the whole kind of element of Joe, when you're pulling yourself across, I think I had I was kind of I was happy at that because I'm quite light, and so there's a part where you're pulling and you kind of dip down,
and then you just go uphill
and
a little
bit. You have to kind of go up the other side, and it's when you went up the other side that was where people that were a bit heavier found it hard struggling to pull. But it was one of those things where, to be honest with you, it was like a fucking school tour. I'm actually not even joking.
Well, I had a few moments like that. So, do you know, kind of talking about, you know, if anybody meditates or your mindfulness, it's like one of the things, speaking back at the beginning, when we came off the bus and then we got on the boats, a bit of me was like, you're getting that bit of a decompression after like going crazy for an hour or whatever it was. But then I just looked over to my left-hand side. Remember, it was like lashing rain, hailstones hitting you in the face. One bit of it was like, fuck this. Another bit I was looking over that cove and, you know, there's the buildings that painted pink and blue. And I was like, Jesus, like, where the hell would you get this? You're flying through Cork on a bleeding speedboat. Do you know what I mean? I was like, what the hell?
I can tell you no, I wasn't thinking that.
For the moment.
You're there thinking, Jesus, Cove is lovely. Well, I'm from Cork maybe, but all I was thinking was, these hailstones are like fucking bullets.
Well, I was actually hiding behind somebody, so a lot of them weren't hitting me.
It's like trying to hide that frame behind somebody.
But there was another one as well where we were just before Scratch. Remember, they lied us all down. And they were like, there's a dude standing there with a duct tape wrapping your boots up. But it was kind of raining at the time. We were under this canopy and the rain was kind of falling through the canopy. And I was just looking up going, Jesus, isn't that beautiful? Again, momentarily. But it is going back to that, like, you know, whatever's going on in your life, being able to find a little moment of peace or joy. I know that's a bit hairy-fairy, but you know what I mean? It's been able to extract little moments out of what we're going through on a day-to-day basis. I think is crazy important.
That's a great little skill to have, though, really, isn't it? Like to just pull that out. Because I do remember when they said legs up and we were lying down inside in the forest. I actually did. I did what I suppose I do at the start of ultramarathon races, because I knew that we were going to be doing Scratch because of watching the show. I was like, right, just prepare yourself for this. Yeah, it will end. There is an end, and we will get through it. And all I was looking for there was, I just want to be back on the bus. Yeah, with everybody at the end of this. Yeah. And I think that's it. There, you do get those times to reflect on that. And if you don't touch on that, maybe it can be more difficult then to get through them. Like you know. Yeah. The element the element that they ask you, like, you know, what was the toughest thing that you've done through this whole thing? My toughest thing was, and my buddy actually had a good comment on this, was the pointing at people.
Okay, I can imagine. Yeah, that was a bit like sitting on the edge, wasn't it? Because some of those people in there are so nice.
Lovely.
So for a really nice person to walk over and go, "You're not going to be able to do it," it's like, that's tricky. That's hard going.
And I am that nice guy, like, you know, I am. Yeah. I'm never going to be like.
I would have had no problem with it.
Oh yeah,
I'm only joking.
No. The thing is though, right? I would expect that you would have been very honest with someone because. And that's what they're actually looking for. They're not looking for people to. So I was actually honest. You know, I didn't pick one of the girls out, right? I don't know why I didn't. I suppose, like, there was two. There was Aoife and there was Louisa, who both got a lot of votes each, right? And I was trying to think about the people that I was kind of, you know, I was kind of close to. I was close in and around kind of like Mark and all those kind of stuff. And Mark, as they said in the show, fucking tremendous laugh. Such a great guy. A guy you'd love to have at any party, or
have to crack with.
You'd love to go out and have a run with him, or whatever the case may be. But he did struggle with admin side of things, and then it slowed us up. Yeah. And it you know, and then we got sometimes our bar above our head and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I said, look, the reason why I picked Mark was, I said to myself, because I had just been in with the lads, and they said to me, they were interrogating, they were like, you need to do less of this mountain shit and you need to do more action. And I goes, right, I'm going to take that on. I said, right, who's a guy that has, I feel is an honest person? Yeah. Who's a person that I can point at and go, you're not going to pass because of this, because you're messing up on day one stuff, and can actually take that on and improve himself. Yeah, right?
That makes sense.
So I was like, because I was like, if there's people, if I point out people that I think are like probably going to be,
they might crumble
under that. And it's not going to add anything to them. I picked out Mark because I did believe what I was saying to him. I was saying, you are making errors from day one, and there's I had that idea of like, if I say this to him, I actually think Mark is a guy that is in the position to kind of go, right. And he even said it. He goes, it's true. Two people have said it about me. It must be true.
Fair play to him.
Fucking fair play to him. And you know what? A thing about Mark as well is he was just that guy that always had that positive word to say around things, which I think is great to have on a team as well. But my buddy said to me, he said, I loved that. Right? My buddy, he lives in Canada, and he's in a kind of he's a project manager. He's like at the moment building a dock. Okay. In
big deal.
So he's a project manager of this of elements to do with this dock build. It's high level stuff, lots of money, lots of important things, details, and he's a very much performance orientated guy, probably similar to you. And he thought, that's fucking great, because the people that are not doing what they should be doing need to know what the rest of the team feel about them. And I think that was looking back on it, it was a fucking great thing to just have that honest look at ourselves.
I think as well, for me, like, talking about your friend there and performance, like my background before I got into the fitness game, I studied structural engineering. So, an engineer is like very black and white. It's like, this is how the thing should be done. It's like, can we do it this way? No, this is how it should be done.
It will fall down.
Yeah, it'll fall down. And I think a frustration I know, and again, this is another reflection, a frustration I know of myself is like, let's say we're in there as a team. Some people, more on the admin things. I think when it comes to doing the events, everybody was crazy strong. Everybody's
giving an effort.
Yeah, everybody's a lovely person, but probably on those admin things, getting organised, I'm like, I could look at a thing and go, this would be a good way to do this. And they're kind of running around doing something crazy, and it's like, for fuck's sake. So that might come across as well. Like the DSs I don't know, did they see that or whatever, but that could be another element where, right, you're not just, I would find it hard to take instruction off of somebody if they were talking bollocks. Now, I can also understand that if you're in a military environment, it's like you just have to listen and follow the orders. There's no room for, I think this should be done this way, So I think that's another kind of talking on reflection or things that you can look back at,
It's frustrating. It was frustrating for me sometimes as well, like just certain individuals that were on the thing that weren't learning at the pace that I thought people should have been learning. I'll definitely say that. There were certain people that I thought, I actually, there's one person I want to highlight again is Kenny. Kenny Rothwell, number 14. Yeah. How actually fucking brilliant it was. How honest he was about like guys, I'm day one in here and
Yeah.
I'm just fucking in over my head.
Yeah.
And he gave his armband.
Yeah.
I actually think that's fucking brilliant honesty. And I just
100%.
think that is just, I commend him on that because because I was seeing him and I was trying to help him at the start, and the things that I was trying to help him with were stuff that I just didn't think as well that people would need help with. Now, I knew he was hypothermic and stuff. I was trying to give him time to fucking defrost, and stuff. But there was just an element of him where he kind of goes, right, guys, I'm not going to make it or whatever. And I just really admired that honesty, right? And I think that's a lot of people were taken out of that. At this point, I'm going to ask the omnipresent voice, Dan, if you have any questions about episode 4 or anything like that, because like good thing is I'm still there experiencing in the show, and you also have Jay here who's been in the show and is looking at it from a spectator's point of view,
I have about 20, but I'm going to try and keep this nice and brief. First of all, let me say I was not prepared for the level of, and I don't use this word lightly, wisdom in this episode. I think the conversation you two guys are having, both of you, the level of reflection, awareness, introspection, I think it's something that so many people could do. So even if you've never seen the show, if you're listening to this, you've obviously seen the show, but Jesus, fair play to both of you so far. There's a couple of points I want to make just to reinforce, because Jay, you said it quite a few times there, and having a background with production and cameras, literally the person at the end of the chain there at the keyboard can make this look like whatever they want it to look like. So you're 100% right there. And I'm always hesitant because I'm not involved in the show, but both of you guys are involved in the show. It can be completely portrayed differently. And Jay, I didn't know you really apart from watching this show, and even just the small snippets that they tried to twist, because you made a very good point about the story arc and you were the evil guy. I was still, Connor said it there in the last episode, I was so impressed by what was coming through, even though they tried to make you the bad guy. So I just want to commend you on that. And the learning that you've taken from this is absolutely amazing. And one more point I do want to just, before I ask you the question, because I'd be here all day talking about this, you said something there that I think is so important in terms of being fair. And I felt when you got pulled out, I almost felt a personal level of injustice. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? This is not right, because he hasn't failed anything. But you made an excellent point, and I agree with this point because I talk about it all the time. And Connor, you said it on the podcast that we did together. How long ago was it? A year ago. It's not fair. This is not. I have an idea what life is, or I have an idea what this show is. I pass the event and I get to the end and I win the show. That's just not what it was. And I think the learnings from that, for me listening to that, because I talk about it all the time, but to see you kind of in that last interview go, look, maybe I just wasn't what they were looking for. And I was shouting at the TV. I was like, yeah, but you fucking passed all the events. Like, that's a great point for people to kind of take, and fair play to you for recognizing that, because it's not fair. Connor, you mentioned it in terms of missing the bus on our podcast together. And sometimes the bus comes and you're not there. It's not fair. But fucking get on with it. Like, it just is what it is, and don't let it affect you. So fair play to both of you for that. My question, because you've answered all my questions throughout this podcast, my question though is, Jay, knowing what you know now about that type of event, and you have a performance and a training background, and you're used to coaching people to whatever, to lose weight, get stronger, do an event, what type of preparation could you potentially do for this level of physical and mental challenge that maybe before you went in, you didn't really know or understand about what was going to happen from maybe from a training point of view?
So I think from the physicality point of view, there's probably a mental side and a physical side. So I think the physical side is try and evacuate any skeletons that you might have in the closet. And the only way to do that is to speak to somebody and to be open and honest. So you have no kind of like anchors around you kind of pulling you back, or, those doubts. I mean, I think very strong people, they know who they are, they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, and they accept them. But if you've got anything like any of those doubts within you that you haven't kind of dealt with, that's going to become very problematic, because although you are there with 28 people, you're kind of on your own as well. There is a team, but there's not a team. So you have a lot of time in your own head, in your own headspace, especially like this mightn't come across in the camera, but there's a lot of time where we were kind of waiting in between events. Like, you had to get prepped and get changed and get your clothes dry. But there's a lot of time for self-reflection. And if you haven't kind of looked after that mental side and understand as well why you're doing a thing, what is your motivation, I think that could be problematic. So that's one area I think you'd look at. And then secondary to that is, for me, where I probably fell down. So like straight away, my aerobic base wouldn't have been what a lot of the guys were. It's just I didn't have that kind of training history. So that'd be one thing. And I think when I was doing, like, let's say hikes in the mountains or whatever, I was kind of doing the hikes to just do it, to get it done. You know, maybe a mate might come with me. And yeah, I was doing 20k, but 20k would be a long distance. That's like an extreme distance for me. So it would have been more time maybe spent in the mountains and maybe a little less time lifting and that type of thing, because I think that's where I probably, you know, I fell down on the day, but I also would have fallen down even if I was fresh in comparison to the other people if they had been fresh. So I think that is where I'd have to spend more time and energy, and especially with a backpack on. But I suppose one caveat there, we're in lockdown and like trying to navigate through police checkpoints in order to get to the mountains was a little tricky as well, getting ready for the show, you know. So I think they're the two things, they're two areas in retrospect that I would have kind of looked back and done something slightly different with.
This is the thing, you know, people don't really actually realize about you were saying there, like the skeletons, you know, the skeletons are like, they're going to come out because of multiple different reasons, because you're physically tired, you're sleep deprived, you're hungry. Emotionally tired. 100% you're emotionally tired. I'm telling you, man, the amount of times where I was on the way to it, and as I said, I'm not a crier in terms of like, I don't find it easy to cry, right? And so I would be in the truck, like, or whatever, our bus or whatever, on the way to these events, and like I'd start thinking about something. Could be something about me or something about whatever, and I would start to get that emotional welling up response. And if you don't, there's certain, like, if I got out of the bus in that mind frame and they started pointing at me and going, "Why fucking, what the fuck you doing, number 11 or whatever?" I think there would be that element of, "Oh, geez, what am I doing here?" Yeah. So like that element of, you're saying, kind of like, you'd want to be sure of and accepting of and this is a great thing, accepting of who you are, your weaknesses, your strengths, you know, and all this kind of stuff. So like the physical side of things, I definitely feel like I had that benefited me. Like this type of my type of training benefited me for going into Ultimate Hell Week, because I did spend an awful lot of time in the mountains, and it was just the idea of just putting weight in the backpack that I added to it. And then I did a lot of like from my physical preparation, and it's great that you have this kind of strength and conditioning, high performance background. Is I did a lot of 15-minute fuck yourself is what I call them, fuck yourself sessions where I just did like weighted vest burpees and like did like fucking jumping split squats and just shit to fucking get the lactic acid in, get those lungs pumping. And I mixed that short 15-minute burst shit with 4-hour weighted hikes, you know what I mean? And I think that creating that balance
prepares the body for it. It's more dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more maneuverable, you know what I mean? You can maneuver it a bit better, like, you know. And I think then there's certain elements that you just can't train for, like the fire one, like where you're just going, no, I'm just going to give some more background into the fire one, right? Because this is the kind of interesting element of it is they took us out. They got us up out of bed, like after about fucking 40 minutes or whatever, and they goes
into the well.
Into the well, all this type of shit. Got us all dressed and all that kind of stuff. So the 40 minutes, and this is the middle of the night. So this is probably 2 a.m. You have no idea what time it is, but like I'm guessing it was about 2 a.m. because we were there for about 4 hours and it was still dark at the end of it. So we got up. We weren't allowed, obviously, fall asleep. So people were fucking going, hey, wake up. So we're on this fucking warm bus, waiting to fucking get this, get in to do this thing. So trying to stay awake was a big thing. And then you're called, and you don't know when they're going to call you. It's like, number fucking blah, blah, blah. And it was me and number 27. 27, Aisha Roach, who was just fucking, she's been a champ throughout this. And we are brought it down this fucking long kind of car park area, and we're told to put on this gear. Now, this is all highly flame retardant fireman suits. They're fucking heavy as fuck. I can
imagine, even carrying that in the gloves.
I was sweating before I got into this fucking thing. And then they give us these mad big gloves that are so hard to pick shit up with because they're designed to fucking withstand 300 or 400 degrees. You know what I mean? If you touch something metal with them, they're not just going to melt away. So huge things. We have the fire helmets on as well, which are heavy as fuck. Balaclavas, the whole lot, right? Instantly you're sweating. Like instantly, like if you know, people have been in a sauna. You know that sweat you get in a sauna after 10 minutes. It's fucking 20 seconds and you're doing that sweating. and it's dark. There's fucking fire everywhere, and you're being shouted at about what to do. Now, I already said that I did treat it too literally, like, you know, but there were so many other elements as well that, like, when I look back at the people that did well in those, I really just have to commend them. I didn't do well because I didn't manage the situation really that well, you know. And I think that was a major learning in itself. Going into other things was, okay, put your fucking head up, look around. Get know your surroundings, know what equipment you have. I didn't know what fucking equipment I had. They actually had to tell me. This is another thing that they didn't actually show in this was we were actually helped like the other ones were when they knew we were going to fail.
Yeah,
they goes, well, look, they're going to fail anyway, so you might as well fucking let them know what the story is. They goes, use the fucking things, and then we attached them onto the thing. Which for me, I was like, this person is going to die if I do that.
This person.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just they said we were one of the fastest people to get the lighter one out. That's because I just fucking picked it up, put it over my shoulder,
out you go,
like I would do in real life, and I just walked up the fucking ladder and put him down on the thing. Yeah. And even when I was putting him down gently, not this whole you know, because I was thinking of this person as an actual person, right? And so when we got out of there, there was at least one DS. It was Alan, who I think in ways is probably one of the scariest ones because he's so unassuming and he's a bit quiet. He's not as vocal,
very direct as well.
Very direct, and he's not as vocal as some of the other.
He's not going to be screaming, shouting in your face.
He's not screaming, shouting. He's going to be more of that. I'm going to fucking hit this guy in the nerve that he doesn't like, you know. And he goes, I just want you to know that those two people would be dead. And you two would probably be dead, right? And I was like, thanks.
Interesting.
Appreciate that input.
Yeah.
And then he goes, so if, and I think they were saying something about, like, if you think you were doing well in this course, that kind of shows what you're doing, right? And I'm like, that's fucking mad. And then we left, and we went down to the people that had already went through, and they were sitting in the back of a truck. And we got out of our gear. It was literally like I'd hopped out of the shower. So I just took off my t-shirt, put my jacket on, and I sat down inside the truck. And do you know what I fucking found about this whole process was, at that time, was everybody was just like a family. Yeah. And they all just said, because they could see we were both disappointed in how we had done, and they had told us to be disappointed.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And they all just said, well done.
Yeah.
They just said, well done, you got through it, you did it, you know, you mean, it was you gave it an effort, and they were all saying, I fucked up here, I fucked up there.
It really helps you when you hear other people.
100%. And I think that was one of the best aspects about it, and I think it was something that we moved forward with. Yeah. But do you know what was the most amazing thing was? We had all this great group bonding after the fire, and then they fucking made us do the pointing fingers afterwards. So it was like, oh, we're all great, and we're all such good friends. And then it's like, boom, you're gonna fail. Like, you're gonna fail.
Again, this is something that, I mean, I hope this comes across, and I think this does to the general public. But like, the guys are not obviously just tough and, you know, army. Like, they're intelligent people as well. And they understand human beings.
They're emotionally intelligent.
100%. Yeah. It's not just the physicality, that physical big macho dudes, scary dudes. It's like they're actually very clever, and how they've put the events together, or even how they've got that event. They knew that you've got this emotional high, this bonding experience. You've been this crucible of literally fire. And then all of a sudden they're going to make us be honest at the end of it. And again, I think it is that thing of, are you going to be honest? Are you going to be truthful, or are you going to take an easy option? You know?
Are you going to point? Because this is another thing as well, is like, are they expecting me to just point at the person who's been pointed at 5 times just so that I can kind of go, nah, they're not going to remember me. Yeah. If there's 6 people and I point at them, they're not going to be like, that fucking prick Connor pointed at me. They'd be like, oh, there's 6 people pointed at me. But I didn't want to take that avenue either, because I felt like that's rubbing salt in wounds, and it's also not beneficial to the team. I think what's beneficial to the team is trying to fucking see someone who could possibly benefit and take direction from that. Well, all I'm going to say, Jay, is, right, this has been fucking really interesting, man. And I'm actually, there was certain elements of it that in the best possible way really surprised me, you know, and in another ways confirmed thoughts that I had already just about your own reflection. So I just want to say to anybody that's listening to the podcast, right, and is enjoying the episodes, like, I really want to say thank you to the patrons of the Patreon page, because they allow me to rent this studio space from Dan, to get you in here and to have this space, and for Dan to be on the ones and twos and to be doing, doing everything in the background. Another big shout out to Dan as well is this is my third episode this month. We have a kind of an agreement of 2 episodes, right, a month, and I'm going to end up doing 4 episodes this month.
Nice.
And I said, we'll change the amount or whatever and all this kind of stuff. And he goes, no, look, whatever you think you should be giving me for this month, put it into Project 32.
Amazing.
And you just keep the normal system that we have. And I just have to commend Dan for that, because he's not, again, he probably didn't expect me to say it out here for everybody to hear, because he's not that type of guy to kind of go, oh yeah, well, I'm being very good to Project 32 here. No, he's a guy that's like, I'm going to do this, and it's nothing, it's not for a pat on the back for him. It's for a belief that he has in supporting good people. And I think that's phenomenal. If there is anybody, I know you were discussing with Dan there about coming into the studio and revitalizing your own podcast. If there is anybody that's kind of thinking, I love listening to podcasts, I think I would love to give it a go and give it a lash, like, just get in contact with Primal, like on Instagram or whatever, because it's Primal Pro on Instagram, because you can do it, like. Yeah. And Dan is one of these people that have just come about that has such a great way of dealing with people. You have a medical, a physiotherapy background, Dan, and I think that comes across in the way that you're even speaking here, is like, coming into, people coming into a physio or a doctor, it's like, I'm here because I don't know what's up with me. And I
need help.
Exactly. And people that are coming in to start their podcast are coming in going, I need help in how to do this. So if you do feel like, I would love to give it a lash, it's a great experience.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And just to come into Primal, it's just it is an amazing studio space.
It's great.
So I just want to thank the patrons again. If you do want to become a patron of the podcast, patrons come and go, but they are always so appreciated from my point of view. And they're what allows me to do this, and to be able to drive up and down to Swords and to get into the studio space is just, it's all because of you. So I just want to thank you, Jay, for coming on and not just like physically showing up, but actually showing up and giving a raw, kind of an honest look at things. And I think that's just what people are going to really take from it. So thank you.
Brilliant. Listen, thank you for having me. Thank you to Dan. And listen, also to the crew, the whole motivation or the motion crew, the production crew, the DS, and particularly to the people that were on the show, because without all of that, we wouldn't have been able to have this experience and share with you guys out here that are listening.
Absolutely. Big shout out to Motive, big shout out to RTE2, but big shout out to all the recruits. However long or short you were in the show, like, it was a fantastic experience to share with all of you. And because of that, I'm able to call Jay my friend and many other people my friend. So I look forward to looking at episode 5 tomorrow night, and I hope that you will tune in as well. Thank you so much for listening.